Hi everyone, I just wanted to share with you a quick little tidbit that I found today that's really going to change the way that I teach, not only in this kind of weird circumstance with COVID-19, but when I get back in the classroom in the fall and anything after that. I'm kind of geeking out a little bit. I know I've been probably cooped up a little bit too long, but I shared this with my math department at Frontenac and they hadn't seen it before, but just a quick shout out to Eric Finn to kind of introduce me to OneNote. Maybe many of you use this already in your classrooms, but this is something that I just learned this year. It works really, really nice with Google Classroom. But the thing that I really didn't like about it was typing in equations that look like this and then getting the students to try and decipher what that really is. So basically what I did before was I would type a little bit of my OneNote and then I would get my stylus from my tablet and I would write my own notes, and it would be a combination of typing and writing. And that's certainly not my strong point. As you get older, your writing looks like chicken scratches, and that's basically what mine was. And then I saw this today. So I thought I'd share it with you, and maybe you've already using this, which is great. If you're not using it, as I mentioned, this is totally changing the way that I'm going to kind of go from here. This is, we're doing rational functions. I've already set up a class that these guys are going to be using their own notes. They're going to be kind of developing their equation, explaining their equation. They're going to set up their OneNote for me and share with me. But a lot of times we ask just to find the answer and then that's it. We don't ask them what the answer really means. So here's what just kind of gives you an introduction on what you can do. So here's what I started: problem solving and creating tutorials. So I'm going to get the kids to kind of do this, and we're doing rational functions, and there's the rational function, and I don't really like the way that's written, so I would get my stylus out and write it a little bit differently. The thing that I found today that's kind of really blowing me away is when I highlight this information and I click on math, it does all the formula for me. Now, I know before you could write it and it would interpret what it was to change it to an equation, and it wasn't exact, but this is exact. Here's where the crazy stuff comes, okay? And again, I apologize if you've already seen this before. If I wanted to solve for x, because it says select an action, I could click on solve for x. Does the answer for me, okay? It's kind of like photo math, I guess. Photo math and the same thing, show the steps using quadratic formula. Okay, it's going to take me through step by step to kind of do it. And there's kind of a good way for students to kind of check their work. Now, the interesting thing is that if I don't want them to solve for x, if I was making a worksheet or if I was making something that I wanted to print or whatever, I know that I can kind of take a look at this, and I'll just kind of change this for a little bit. I'm going to hide all the pages, and that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to graph both sides. So this is going to graph the left side of the equation, and this is going to graph the right side equation, and I'm just going to insert on page, and it's easy as that. That's going to have the equation or the solution there that you're going to kind of check your work. So if I'm kind of wanting to print this later, this could be my worksheet and say, prove that your solutions are correct using Desmos, or prove it according to the graph. So that's one of the interesting components. The second part of this is I can kind of start to kind of not only change my questions, but get them to really delve deeply into it. So in other words, if I was still kind of doing rational functions, I open up another tab. And if you're teaching, probably you have all these tabs open that you're bouncing from one to another when you're doing your video conference with your kids. And sometimes it gets a little confusing for the kids, and maybe you get confused as well, because I know I do. But here's the really kind of interesting concept. I've got Desmos. I typed in my equation. There's the graph. That's nothing new. My question could be graph the asymptotes and check your work is correct. But this is just a regular Desmos graph. So I really like kind of doing the worksheet that I started. So I want to see, I'm going to click on this share. I'm going to copy the link. And when I go back to here, I'm going to paste it. And the interesting thing about this is now it gives me an interactive Desmos graph. Okay. in my worksheet. So in other words, I could kind of move this guy around. Now it's interactive. I could kind of say, all right, I think the equation is x equals 1. No, it can't be that. X equals 2. So there's the start of your worksheet. And again, the explanation in chatting with other teachers is, how do we kind of take this technology, and if the students already know the full solutions, how do we get them to kind of learn something without doing the same thing we've done for the last 100 years? Show your work. How do you interpret that question? How do they kind of change their understanding about this? And what questions can you ask? Because I think with this, you can ask much more complex questions than just asking to solve. Now, there's where the discussion happens, okay? Hope you're doing well, okay? Hope you liked the video. And if you have any questions or concerns, I'd be happy to answer them. Take care.